Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's a sunny day and I'm a bit mithered from going down the high street to drop off books and have a walk out and visit a nice florists and kind of nursery for plants that I'm going to be drawing. What else have I been doing? Thank you everyone for your amazing comments from the video that went up in the middle of last night. The whole video I did about my relationship with my estranged father and his recent death, and my talking about that. It seems to have stirred up lots of mixed feelings for lots of you lot as well. My revenge upon the world is to give everybody mixed feelings about things, but it's really lovely to get your comments. There were so many nice things people were saying. I'm still thinking about it all, really, and what it all means. I did think it's been interesting talking directly to camera about my own life. Usually I use the medium of books to break open the ideas and the memories that I'm stirring up and thinking about. And in some ways, books are just a kind of alibi for talking about my own life. That's, I think, true. It's interesting just to sit down and start telling you stuff. What's nice is to learn that there is an audience out there who is listening so nicely and so kindly, really. You hear so many things about the internet and social media being a wicked place, and of course it is, because it's free. I mean, it's a free zone for people to do things in, but there's a lot of good stuff out there, a lot of good people wanting to talk to each other, connect. Anyway, enough about that. My other thing today is I got a parcel of t-shirts from a nice company I've been working with to get some t-shirts with panda cartoons on, and that was a thing in the last few days, and the first batch was great. Second batch arrived today, 80 quid's worth of t-shirts, and they're back to front. So that was a kind of calm moment. I ordered them on Monday when I think my head was probably in a whirl. And I think their clunky website, this printer's clunky website, didn't help. When it showed what was on the front of the t-shirt, it said at the top, "Show the back." And I took that as a description rather than an instruction. Anyway, I've got a box load of useless t-shirts with cartoons on the back, so if anybody wants them, I'm reordering the ones. So if you've ordered t-shirts from me, it'll be a little while longer while I sort out this arse about face mistake. Okay, that's things. I was going to show you some journals. I actually hiked down one of the boxes from above, back there. People have been noticing I've got these boxes of, what does that say? 1997 it says. I think this is all from the same year then. At one point I did have a bit of a sort out, and these were nice journals to write in with pink paper. They came from a stationer's, I think, and they're just offcuts. They came from Edinburgh. Look how tidy and tiny my handwriting is. And so I think these are all from the same time. Here's a blue one. And there were drawings in here as well, like, of people sitting at cafes when I was writing and working. 97, I would have been writing a number of things at the same time. I was preparing to go to UEA to lecture. I was living in Edinburgh. I think I was dashing up and down the country, and I was teaching all sorts of things. I was doing Avon teaching. I was with Jeremy, first year with Jeremy, or second year with Jeremy, and there's always much more journal stuff than I remember, because I just write my journal without even thinking about it, and they're almost novelizations of my own life. And I was writing a novel called Fancy Man, And no, I wasn't. I was doing the initial notes for that. I was writing Could It Be Magic? And I was writing The Scarlet Empress. Quite busy. There's some poems, I think. Here's a poem from 1997 called Young, Common and White. Nell buys us drinks. She's wearing her silver shoes. We burst into the din of the student bar and Pulp's common people taunts and welcomes us. It's me and you dancing and flailing in Glasgow last Saturday night. Nell talks carefully about the journals she's kept since 1959. I tell the audience Waterstones are laying out their car boot sale. In Pinocchio's, it's down to serious talk. I think I told my whole life. I always tell my own life and everyone else's. White wine always does the trick. Nell says, starting so young and writing until now has taken her everywhere she ever wanted to go. It's a poem about being out with Nell Dunn in 97. In both Glasgow and Edinburgh. I don't think she was in Glasgow. I think I just zipped off to go and do an event in Glasgow. Pinocchio's was a restaurant somewhere, Norwich, I think. I really was moving around a lot. I found a appointment diary, 96 this is, and oh, this is interesting. Now, 96. Look at the, I always like to look at the date, what I was doing on that day, on this day in that year. So it's the, what is it, the 8th of May today? Yes, 8th of May. Was a Wednesday. I was in London and I was going to the Old Vic to see An Ideal Husband with my friend Antonia. And she was working at whatever the theatre is where Les Mis was on. So I met her then there and we went to see Oscar Wilde at the Old Vic because the next day I was at the BBC at TV Centre or Centre House for this meeting with Jed Mercurio about Invasion Earth at 10 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I was just everywhere. That week had begun with a party in Edinburgh for Lucy's birthday. Then I went to London. Then I was in, and I met my friend Ruben in the National Gallery. Then I went to Kettering to see my friend Sarah, who's a novelist. I stayed with her. And then I went back to London for more Invading of the Earth on Monday at the BBC. I've told this story before in recent weeks about working for this science fiction show and Jed Mercurio. When I wrote my episode, it wasn't about men in fighter planes and soldiers. It was about old ladies queuing at the doctors to give pee samples to the doctor to find out if they had been infected by an alien virus. It was much more COVID than Close Encounters. And then I didn't go to this. It's in my diary though. A.S. Byatt's launch for Babel Tower, somewhere fancy at the ICA. Maybe I did. I can't remember. I used to get sent things from Chatto and I knew people like A.S. Byatt and all those fancy old dames and novelists, and I'd go to these things. It's amazing to think back on, really. And then I went to Durham to see me mum, and then I was back in Edinburgh the next week. I was using the phone a lot. That's interesting. And every night there's little messages about phone so-and-so or a long conversation with so-and-so. 20th in Edinburgh, 20th of May, back in Edinburgh. Starting to write Invasion Earth, it says. Talk to Jonathan, who was my editor, the one who looked like a blonde Brian Ferry at Chatto and Winders. He would hate that description, I'm sure. Chuck out old clothes and also chuck out hundreds of bits of paper. So I was still obsessed with trying to make space. I lived in a tiny flat then. And then it says, talk to Beryl Bainbridge on the phone. Then I was back in London, seeing this friend reading at the voice box at the South Bank Centre. A friend who'd been on the MA, who was a poet. A friend who has unceremoniously dumped us, me and Jeremy, in recent years, about 10 years ago. Still don't know why. But that's the way of some people. They just dump you when you stop being useful or of interest. Or maybe, I don't know, when you get fat and old, they're not so bothered. I don't know. Or less successful than they want you to be. I do have a bit of a thing where I have friends who think they can get something out of me because I'm published or whatever, and I can help them along. And they, I don't realise this, I'm too credulous. When they realise how limited I am in being able to get people up the kind of nepotism tree, they dump you and move on to the next. But I think some people make a lifetime career of that, just jumping to the next person they can use. I could give you a list of people who who've treated me like that. There's some real shits out there, I have to tell you, and the world of writing is swarming with shits. That sounds terrible, but there you go. I did hear something very sad the other day about a friend of mine who's a friend for years and years, and we fell out a little while ago for various reasons. I'd heard that he has begun a Facebook group for people who hate me. I found that kind of utterly sad and weird, to be honest. Of all the things to do, surely you've got a better hobby than that somewhere that you could be doing. Anyway, what is the Spread Eagle? I don't know what I went to in Camden Town. What's the Spread Eagle? Is that a pub? I hope it wasn't something insalubrious. There are people whose names suddenly kind of swim out of the past and surprise me. See, I think Karen, the Karen I knew in Edinburgh, was, I think, a German woman who had lots of gay bear friends, and they were all hilarious. And she used to do flamenco dancing in her own kitchen on a little wooden board. She was like somebody out of ABBA who lived in a flat by herself. She was like the heroine of an ABBA song, flamenco dancing in her own kitchen and running about with the gay bears. She used to go into the dark rooms as well, apparently, just to have a look to see what was going on in the bear bars. Now, here's my viva in Lancaster. 31st of May, 1996, 28 years ago, my viva for my PhD. My PhD was on Angela Carter, and my subject was about the idea of transsexualism and as a metaphor for postmodern subjectivity in the novels of Angela Carter, with reference to Jeanette Winterson as well, because they were quite different and writing in different eras almost. And the PhD viva was then on the, at the very end of May, 28 years ago. And they told me there and then I had my, I was going to be doctored, and I just had some corrections to do, which I did in Tipex on the manuscript in a gay bar in Liverpool. I went to Liverpool straight after from Lancaster to meet a friend who was living there, and I Tipexed out all the did the corrections and posted it straight back, and then went out with this friend who then came out to me in the middle of a club, which was a bit of a surprise. Then I'm back in Edinburgh. I'm not going to go through the whole of 1996, don't worry. It's amazing to see this constellation of different things going on. Quite surprising, really. Then I moved to a new flat with two fellas called George. Now there was a story. I'll tell you that one day. Some of these things I have worked up into stories or poems. and kind of given some finish to. This is a diary. This one's later. This is 1999, and it's in Italy, and it's got drawings in, little sketches, and tiny, tiny handwriting. Look at that little drawings from frescoes and all sorts, and gardens. It's the Bobbly Gardens in Florence. We were staying with Lorna Sage. Look at that. There's a sketch of Jeremy. Oh, can you see that? There he is. Having lunch and being all fancy in the Bobbly Gardens, overlooking all of Florence. We saw this American couple who was a bloke who claimed to have the whole of the Italian Renaissance on a CD-ROM. There's more drawings than I thought, actually. And that's amazing. Oops. This is low power mode. It's a bit how I feel. Rose petals fell out. Can you believe it? From 1999 in Florence. Rose petals fell out of my journal. They were just in there. They were in there in the middle of a Elizabeth Bishop poem that I'd copied out in the middle of the night in Lorna's house. That's amazing to find rose petals. That's quite nice. That's like a little message, a little gift from the past. Sorry, you can't really see these, but there's still pictures and pages of stuff going on. Madonnas and things. I wish I had taken some colours with me. I wish I was using pastels or coloured pencils or felt tips or something when I was doing this. Because here we are in Venice and it's just line drawings. In Venice, sitting at our table by the window. Jeremy's just said, this is good. We can sit up here with the gondolas sailing past, making lots of people jealous. We were by the Academia Bridge and it was a hotel room with Adam's creation painted above the headboard. We'd stopped in a bar and had Pinot Grigio and sandwiches, propped up and listening to everyone, getting top-ups of pale green wine. As the owner, who looked just like Harvey Keitel, was dropping fresh green ice cubes into our glasses. Actually, it's a bar off license called the Bottigon in Venice, and they had wine on tap, and you'd take a empty Coke bottle and they would fill it with this kind of slightly greyish, very cold, dry wine, and it was Pinot Grigio, and it was the slops from all the different kinds of wine, and that's what Pinot Grigio is, and it costs, not a lot to buy a big bottle of that. Now, of course, it's everywhere. I've not looked at these for so long. These pages, that really scribbly drawings of canals and gondolas and things. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I kept pictures. Jeremy asleep under the creation of the universe. I should scan these, I suppose, or do something with them. Scrappy looking gondolas. We went to the Peggy Guggenheim Museum. That's what I remember. And I think that's a picture from inside it. And she's somebody who's come to life recently for me in reading Joanne Moorhead's book about Leonora Carrington. And Peggy Guggenheim arrives as a character when they're in Portugal and trying to escape Europe when the Nazis are taking over everywhere. And Guggenheim takes off Max Ernst. There's a whole constellation of people deciding who to run away with in Portugal, in a place that is the kind of basis, apparently, of Casablanca in the movie. Same kind of idea that they're leaving, or they're flying away off to America to safety, some of them. More pictures of inside Peggy Guggenheim's museum, which was a magical place, I remember. I hope I haven't lost those petals. It's amazing to find flowers falling out of the past. Thunder over the outside courtyard of the Peggy Guggenheim Museum. An American mother explains to her toddler, she was a nice lady who gave all her pictures to the world when she died at a very old age. Now, can you guess what kind of animal this is? Venice smells of damp wool. I was expecting something more offensive. We've been looking at, I'm back on the wine, the vast green bottles of local wine, and the shop full of handmade books. They cover them all in peacocks and angels. And there's the front, there's the kind of waterfront where we sat and watched all these old ladies traipsing up and down, jangling with jewellery. And some kind of tourist fella with just his haversack and shorts on, writing postcards at the bridge, with two American girls writing theirs. In the book, Jane would sit there smoking. Obviously, June. I'm writing a story at the same time, clearly. June would sit there smoking as they eat their toasted sandwiches, and they'd complain, "You're sitting at our table anyway. Then we're your guests. I didn't ask you." Right at the front, having coffee, seeing our two waitresses from the trattoria, Cugna, the Cugnai trattoria, last night, walking home up the steps to the bridge. Walking into view, they do it like stepping onto a stage where everybody can see them. Similarly, on the water buses, people stand in groups like in a photo shoot or group portrait, braving the sea and the wind, posing for posterity, or like a group of survivors. We bought a £300 Murano glass chandelier with daffodils and twisted leaves. What have we done? They packaged it all up to send to us in Norwich. And Lorna and Rupert said, "You'll never get it." But 2 weeks later, this parcel actually, no bigger than this, I don't think, maybe slightly larger, arrived with every single flower, glass flower and leaf and bulb individually wrapped in brown paper. Anyway, I've only got a tiny way into this box talking about these. Obviously, there's a lot of mileage in talking about old journals. I will go and promise to see you again soon in the next episode of this. Goodbye.